So today we're talking about another little insight into the law of series that I wanted to run over the Christmas and New Year period. And today we're going to talk about the law of vibration. So the law of vibration is very much generalized into a lot of woo-woo, how you're feeling, the vibe behind it. And I agree with that to a certain essence, but I wanted to put a more of a scientific spin on today's podcast and video for you guys, because I think it's really important to tackle the deeper meanings of these things. And previously I've talked about the law of rhythm and the law of attraction, and today I wanted to talk about the law of vibration, particularly because we're in the holiday season. And I think we've all been in a room where you walked in, or you could have cut the air with a knife, the old saying, or there was just a vibe in the room that wasn't quite right. And I think that's really easy to imagine when you're in the Christmas New Year period, because we're kind of a lot of the time around family and friends that it could be a little bit tense, or there could be a little bit of tension, or it could just be just a mix of dynamics of lots of different personalities. So I thought it was really pertinent to talk about this today. So if that's something interests you, hang around and we might learn something new together. Welcome back, everybody. I'm Nicola, presenter of Freedom from the Desk. So today's topic is one that I find really, really interesting. It's the law of vibration. So that's about emotional regulation and nervous system states. So we're not really going to delve into the woo-woo side of law of vibration. Today is really about the science behind it and just talking about a few things that will help us navigate this. And if you've been watching before, you may have seen previous ones in my little mini series that I've got running over the Christmas New Year period for 2025. So I've previously talked about the law of rhythm, the law of attraction, and then today, because we're sort of in that in-between, the witching zone, in between Christmas and New Year, I wanted to talk about the law of vibration. So let's get stuck in. So the law of vibration is quite often not explained very well, and I really wanted to explore the options of kind of high vibration or energy fields versus your nervous system and your actual emotional state, and how that actually influences us in the real world when we've got to interact with people and we've got to interact with friends and family. And it seemed particularly pertinent to touch on this today because, as of recording, I'm bang smack in the middle of Christmas and New Year. So there's a lot going on for people. There's a lot of people navigating family and friends and emotions, and people that have experienced loss, people that have experienced trauma at this time of the year. So I think the law of vibration is a really good one to have a discussion about. But first and foremost, I love sharing where these things kind of come from, how they're born. So traditionally, the law of vibration actually comes from philosophical and metaphysical ideas, the belief that everything is in motion and constantly changing. And modern science essentially agrees with this, but not in the mystical, and I say that in inverted commas for those who aren't watching on YouTube but are listening on the podcast. In biology and neuroscience, we understand this as in a state, right? As an actual state of an emotional state, or you're in a nervous system state, or you could be in a psychological arousal state. So your body and brain are actually always in motion, responding to your environment as it unfolds. So your thoughts, your memories, your stress levels. So what people actually often call vibration, science calls nervous system activation. And when we look at the actual science behind it, the autonomic nervous system, so your nervous system consistently shifts between states. So we've got sympathetic, which is actual fight, flight, stress and urgency, so that's sympathetic. And then we've got parasympathetic, which is rest, connection and calm. And then we've got ventral vagal, and that's safety, openness and social connection. And the polyvagal theory, which is actually linked to Dr. Stephen Porges, So your emotional state actually determines how you interpret conversations, how patient we are, how reactive or how calm you actually feel, how connected or overwhelmed you feel. And often we hear people talk about this as a vibration, like good vibes when they walk into a room or when they meet someone for the first time. But emotional contagion, and of course this is immensely relevant to the holiday periods. So research actually shows emotions are contagious, right? But when someone yawns, everyone else in the room yawns as well. So studies by Elaine Hatfield at the University of Hawaii actually show that humans subconsciously mirror emotional states, right? So in tone, body language, mood, and that affects others pretty much instantly. So when people say the energy feels tense in a room, that's not spiritual or woo-woo, it's actually neurobiology. So why does this matter? Why does this topic actually matter at this time of the year, in this really heightened holiday season? This is why the law of vibration actually matters so much at this time of the year, because Christmas and the New Year period actually amplifies stress, expectations upon us, unresolved family dynamics, being put back into that situation again, financial pressure for a lot of people, emotional memories, because it's a big trigger to things from the past. And when your nervous system is actually dysregulated, small things feel huge, they feel very big. Comments feel immensely personal to you. Your patience becomes like teeny tiny, it just disappears. And overwhelm actually escalates very, very quickly. But when your nervous system is actually regulated, you respond instead of actually react. You set boundaries more calmly. You stay present instead of being depleted. And your vibration isn't about positivity, it's actually about regulation and recognizing that. So, business and life applications. I love to give a little bit of a tip or something you can actually put into action or try for yourself. There's no sense talking about this and sharing no information that you can actually try and implement for yourself. So if you're talking about it in the business sense, and here on my channel, I love to support small business owners, but a lot of what I talk about also applies in life as well. So in business, your emotional state affects your decision making. I know it sure as hell does for me. When you're in business and you're kind of everything to everybody, emotional things and your decision making are very, very closely linked, whether we like to admit it or not. And stress also narrows our perspective, but calm expands clarity. And in relationships, regulation creates safety, and dysregulation creates conflict. So when we're talking about it in the sense of where we are at the moment at this time of the year and the holidays, what it comes down to is you don't need to control the room. And that's probably a hard pill to swallow for a lot of us, including me. But we do actually need to support our state, what state we're in, and be very mindful of that. So you don't control the environment, but you do influence it through how regulated we are. So I'll repeat that again. You don't control the environment, but you do influence it through how regulated we are. So some really simple tools for you guys. I like simple. Simple is good. So tool number 1 is actually name the state. So ask yourself, am I regulated or dysregulated right now? So if something's happening and something's getting a rise out of you, it's a dysregulated state versus being more calm and regulated. And naming it reduces its intensity. And this is from research called affect labeling from UCLA, Matthew Lieberman. So that's affect labeling. So recognize the state that you're actually in. And tip number 2, breathe slower than your stress. So slow exhales activate our vagus nerve. So if you've ever been in a situation where you've gone to yourself, just count to 10 and calm yourself, that's sort of a little bit of a snippet of what I'm talking about here. So breathe slower than your stress. So an example is inhale 4, so you're counting to 4, so inhale, and then exhale for 6, so it's a longer exhale than in. So we're counting to 4 when we inhale, and then when we're exhaling, we're counting to 6. So 2 minutes of doing this, so inhale 4, exhale 6. If you do that for 2 minutes, it's actually enough to shift your state. So if you're in a situation where, you've got relatives or friends that, in that holiday environment, you can just escape yourself to the loo for a couple of minutes and just go through this breathing exercise. Inhale for 4, so count to 4 when you inhale, and then as you exhale, count to 6, so make sure it's longer breath out than breath in. And tool number 3, lower the bar, right? We're our own worst enemies when it comes to this time of the year. So Christmas doesn't require perfection. It requires us to be present. So regulation to performance. So those 3 tips are really easy. So we've got breathing, we've got to lower the bar, don't be so hard on ourselves, and name the state that you're actually in. Recognize it. So recognize, breathing, and lower the bar. Don't be so hard on ourselves. 3 really simple tools to get us through this period. And as I said, we're talking about the law of vibration here. It's not about woo-woo and staying positive all the time. It's about understanding that your nervous system shapes how we actually experience everything. And when we experience things, sometimes it's a lot more heightened at particular times of the year. And so this is why I wanted to do it for the Christmas New Year period. So when we learn how to actually regulate our state, you don't just protect your own well-being, you make the space around you feel safer too. So that's not woo-woo, that's actually science. And that's a gift you can give yourself this holiday period or absolutely any time of the year. So I hope that has been really insightful. A little snippet into the law of vibration, emotional regulation, and nervous system states for this time of the year, or for any time of the year. So take what you need from this episode. Have a very safe and wonderful Christmas and New Year period if you're watching this in 2025. And if you're watching this any other time of the year, I hope this law of vibration episode has been helpful. And until next time, have an awesome day.